Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm doing my top 50 games of all time, numbers 30 to 21. I rate all the games in this section of the list a 9 out of 10. That means the order of these doesn't matter that much. All of these games I consider to be a part of that the best of the best games ever made. These are all must-play games, games that I would play anytime, anywhere. They all get my highest recommendation. So let's just jump right in right away. My number 30 is Concordia. Concordia is essentially a deck building game of sorts, maybe more of a hand builder because you have these cards and on your turn you play one of them and it lets you perform an action. And you're trying to get these resources in order to build buildings out in different places on the map. But you keep playing cards from your hand until you play a specific card which lets you pick up all of your cards back into your hand so you can start taking those actions again. And then as you acquire these new cards, you'll get different actions, more powerful actions, and you're kind of incentivized to try to go through your hand of cards as much as you can before you play that card to pick them all up because you'll get more money and it'll be a little bit more powerful. That's a really neat system. Kind of like a rondel, but with cards. Now, the extra layer there, though, is that the cards that you're getting are also giving you scoring conditions for the end of the game. There's like 5 or 6 different gods, and they will score for different things. And so as you're collecting these cards, you're basically getting scoring multipliers for those various different aspects. So you want to get cards that are going to match what you're kind of doing. Are you spreading out on the board a lot, or are you going to very specific different types of places that produce specific things? That is very cool. I love a game that lets you kind of develop how you're going to score. Not just what you're going to score, but what things you're going to be able to focus on and score. That's always fun. And I want to mention, because Concordia has a lot of different expansions, different map expansions, but I want to call out in particular the Solitaria expansion, which lets you play Concordia solo. It's an amazing system, very streamlined. I love it, and I love playing Concordia solo, and that expansion is really giving this a bump. Concordia would be not much lower, but a little bit lower on this list if it weren't for that expansion. I've done a full playthrough using it, so you can go check that out. But that's my number 30, Concordia, with the Solitaria expansion. Number 29 is Arkham Horror, the Living Card Game. This is a cooperative campaign card game where you get a unique character that with its own deck that you can, customize at the beginning of the game if you want. You're going to be building up that deck over the course of the campaign. And then you're going around, you're exploring, discovering clues, trying to advance the plot and survive. If you've played any of the Arkham games, then, you'll be right at home here. There's a ton of ingenuity in how they use the cards to create locations, to make it feel almost like a board game. And you have really great, Lovecraftian stuff going on here. Interesting stories. A lot of, fun, creepy nonsense. And it may sound silly, but resolving some of these actions, you're drawing into a bag and pulling out these tokens. It's just fun. It's just a ton of fun. It plays great as a solo game. It also plays great at 2. I think I've mostly played this as a 2-player game and really enjoyed it. And there is just a ton of content for this. Tons of campaigns. And it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. This isn't always the type of game that I want to play, but when I want something in this genre, this is where I turn. That's my number 29, Arkham Horror, the Living Card Game. Number 28 is Lisboa. This is another Vital Lacerda heavyweight Euro game. This one involving hand management and tile laying. It's sort of a difficult one to describe mechanically, but what really shines here is the theme. The game is about rebuilding Lisboa after the Great Earthquake of 1755. There was this massive earthquake, which was immediately followed by a tsunami, and then 3 days of fires. And so we're just trying to rebuild the city, and there's just a ton of history injected into this game, which really comes through with the really distinctive and wonderful Ian O'Toole artwork. And on your turn, you have a hand of cards, you play one card, it lets you take some actions, and then you draft a card, and that's it. You just keep doing that, playing one card to your tableau, doing a bunch of things that the card lets you do, and then drafting another one. Trying to build these different buildings on the different streets, which are giving you points. It's very dense, and it's a heavyweight game. It's hard to get into, but once you've wrapped your mind around it, it really comes together, and there's just so many different things that you can pursue. There's so many different little special abilities that you can get. It's truly a fascinating game, and one that I feel is actually going to go up higher on this list over time as I get to play it more and more. So anyway, that's my number 28, Lisboa. Number 27 is Underwater Cities. This is more of a medium weight or maybe medium heavy Euro game, certainly not as complex as Lisboa, but also with a great theme. I love this idea of creating and building an underwater city, building up these domes, the tunnels that are connecting the different living areas, and then having different farms and industry and stuff like that. It's a very cool setting and a cool theme. And then you're doing this worker placement, but it's a very cool card system. You have a hand of cards, and the worker placement spots come in 3 colors, and your cards come in 3 colors. And on your turn, you're going to place a worker on one of the action spots, and you're going to play a card. And if you match the colors, then you get to do the action that's on the card, the special ability that's on the card. So it's really simple that way, but it makes for some interesting decisions. You might really want to take an action spot, but you don't have a matching card. Do you maybe go somewhere else that's less good, but so you can get that card power? And the deck of cards is just massive. You're constantly getting all these different special abilities that you can do. Some of them give you permanent effects. Some of them just give you a one-time bonus. I love games with these large deck of cards with a big variety because each game feels so different. You never know what you're going to get. You can constantly try to pursue something different. And then after that, you're collecting different resources and, building these different things, trying to achieve these objectives. It all comes together great. And there's a ton of variety, not just because of the cards, but you have different boards with different abilities and different sort of layouts. Just an excellent Euro game. That's my number 27, Underwater Cities. Number 26 is Star Wars Rebellion. This is straight up just Star Wars in a box. This is a massive, epic game, 2-player game. You can play it 4, but really 2-player asymmetrical game of hide and seek, basically, where one player is going to be the rebels. They have a hidden base out here in the, somewhere in the galaxy on one of these planets. Another player is playing the Empire, searching the galaxy for this rebel base, constructing the Death Star, possibly blowing up planets. You're building ships and you're flying around. There's going to be space combat. There's going to be land combat. And you're also going to be doing these missions. You have these cards with these missions on them. And you have characters, well-known characters from all the movies that you're going to be sending out on these missions. There's tons of bluffing. There's some cat and mouse stuff going on here. There's dice chucking. It's just got everything. Also means that it's epic. It's long. It's complicated. There's a lot of rules to digest. But I don't think there's any other game that captures the feel, the tone of Star Wars. Spoiler alert, this is my favorite Star Wars game just because it captures exactly what you would want from that franchise. That is my number 26, Star Wars Rebellion. Number 25 is Pandemic Iberia. Now, in a way, this is a stand-in for all the pandemics. You're not going to see another pandemic on this list. Iberia is my favorite iteration of the game. It's my favorite rule set. It's the pandemic game that I play. Regular Pandemic is fantastic. A lot of interesting things going on in those expansions to the base game. And obviously the Pandemic Legacy games are fantastic experiences. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of, legacy games and legacy systems, still a blast to play, and I can see why those would be a lot of people's favorite pandemics. To me, I like the historical setting here, and I like that it keeps sort of the regular pandemic system mostly intact. If you don't know, these are cooperative games where you move about the board trying to take care of these diseases that are popping up. And also you're sort of set collecting cards in order to turn them in to actually treat the disease, to eradicate the disease. Iberia adds a couple of ideas with the water that you can spread around, and then also the railroad that you can build to gain more movement. These are very simple ideas, and yet they add just enough to sort of the original pandemic formula, just make it so much more compelling and thematic for me. That is Pandemic Iberia. Number 24 is Sleeping Gods. I've done a tutorial video that has no spoilers in it. It just sort of shows you the beginning of the game and teaches you how to play. And then I did like an 8-part playthrough of like the first third of the game. So check that out if you want to learn more. But this is an amazing open world cooperative, but I've played it solo campaign, adventure, exploration game where you have a bunch of these characters that have sort of been transported to a strange, mysterious world, and they're sailing around, going to different places, and you're just reading stories, making decisions, you know, trying to pass different checks and things, having combats, and upgrading your characters and their abilities. Also try to find these totems that are supposed to help you, wake the gods and get back home. I'm a huge fan of exploration in games, and this one does it better than almost any other. Just this feeling of having this massive world that you can just go anywhere. You can just sail off in any direction that you want. Just kind of do your own thing, try to survive, try to figure out these mysteries. Oh, it's so satisfying. I'm just a really big fan of the story here. It's a very interesting world. You're constantly coming across interesting events, meeting interesting people. And honestly, I even love the combat. Some people don't really like that part of the game. I really like it. I think it's this very clever system where you can kind of decide what part of the enemy to attack, which will maybe make them lose one of their special abilities or not hit you back as hard. You can use splash damage, and the different characters have these synergy bonuses where they might do something and then they can give a little bonus to one of the other characters for when they attack. I'm incredibly smitten with this game, but that's my number 24, Sleeping Gods. Number 23 is The Lost Ruins of Arnak with the Leaders expansion. Now, I've done playthroughs of this game as well, just the base game and with the Leaders expansion. I'm specifying with the Leaders expansion because it's really making a good game a great game, and I consider it absolutely necessary. Now, in a previous list, I mentioned Dune Imperium. This is another one of those worker placement games with deck building. But it incorporates it in a slightly different way where you essentially have multi-use cards, and the cards will sometimes have to be spent in order to place a worker at a location, or you can spend a card for its ability. And thematically, you're exploring this island, and so you're sending out your workers to get resources, but also to uncover new spots, which open up new worker placement spots. Each one of these new areas is then guarded by some sort of, big monster of some sort, which you'll then want to take out, which then unlocks the area in the future for people to go to and get other benefits. You also have this research track that you're moving up. You're gaining new items to add to your deck, or these artifacts, which do these really cool special abilities. And the Leader expansion adds asymmetric player powers, which are extremely different from one another. You gain this really cool power that really changes up how you play the game. Definitely check out my playthrough to see that in more detail, because it had so much fun and so much replayability to this amazing game. I really love this one solo, but it's also great at 2 and even 3 players. This is one of the newer games that just keeps hitting the table over and over again, and I'm just absolutely loving it. That's my number 23, The Lost Ruins of Arnak with the Leaders expansion. Number 22 is Grand Austria Hotel. This is a medium weight Euro game with dice drafting, and that is one of my favorite mechanisms. Thematically, you're running a hotel, you're bringing in these guests, and then you're trying to serve them whatever they want. They might want some wine, coffee, cake, whatever. Once you serve them, you get their special ability, and then you put them up in one of your hotel rooms that matches their color, which you have to prepare first. And you're just trying to do that. You're trying to bring them in, serve them, and then get them into a hotel room to score points. You also have assistants and these different goals you're trying to meet, but you do it all through dice drafting. You have a big old group of dice that you roll, and whatever number is rolled corresponds to a certain action. So you put all the dice in the different actions, and then on your turn, you just pick one of the dice, and the strength of that action is based on how many dice are in that pool at the moment. So maybe I want to prepare a bunch of rooms. Well, I'll pull that corresponding dice, and if there's 3 dice, then I can prepare 3 rooms. So sometimes you get these really powerful actions. You roll, you get a bunch of 3s, right? And so that 3 action is super powerful. It's just a really clever, satisfying game. Very tight. The economy here is really tight, and I am terrible at this game. I am constantly spending all my money, struggling to do what I need to do. But I'm a sucker for drafting, and so the card drafting mixed with the dice drafting is just super satisfying. Highly recommend this one, particularly at 2 players. That's the sweet spot. Really one of the best medium weight Euros around. That is my number 22, Grand Austria Hotel. Number 21 is This War of Mine. This is a game that I just gain more and more appreciation for the more I play. I've had a few sessions of it this year that have really elevated the game for me, and I've done a complete playthrough of this one. I think it's the best thing that I've done on the channel. This is such a unique cooperative survival game. I prefer to play it solo, where you just play regular people in the middle of like a war-torn city, just trying to survive. It can be truly harrowing and disturbing as you venture out at night looking for supplies to bring back to this sort of broken down apartment that you're holed up in. There's this very cool card system when you're doing your exploring that uses a little bit of push your luck. And then during the day, you're in your house searching through rubble, trying to build different things like beds and heaters and traps, worrying about food and water, trying to manage your character's conditions, their fatigue, their hunger, but even their misery level. And if any of their conditions get out of hand, then they die or they run away. And you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to survive until there's a ceasefire. There's a lot of dice rolling. It utilizes what I consider to be the most evil die in board gaming, this black D10 of death and destruction. So there can be some luck there, but it all just adds to the atmosphere, the theme. This is really an experience, and I think it captures this idea of trying to survive a war in a way that no other board game I've played has done. So this is, I think, a truly special game, and it's my number 21, This War of Mine. So there you go, 10 more. This was an interesting mix of some great competitive Euros, a bunch of really unique cooperative games. Quite an interesting mix there. Please check out my next 10. We're going to be doing 20 to 11. Some really exciting games on that list. So please come back, check those out. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.